MiddleEasy.com, here with Dan Hardy. Dan, I'm curious, how would you be dealing with your Wolff-Parkinson syndrome if you hadn't been on the ayahuasca retreat?
I think it would have been a very different process for me. I think I would have been a different person, to be honest, if I had not had that experience. So I don't know, and it was weird as well. The fact that a wolf kept showing up while I was there, it was that kind of freaked me out a little bit. And obviously my nickname as well. The Latin law for the outlaw in England was "let his be the head of a wolf." So this is what I'm talking about. All these synchronicities, everything's coming together.
That would trip most people out, but to you or to me, it seems like you just kind of expect that now after maybe this trip or this ayahuasca retreat.
Well, there are a lot of things in my life that most people would consider weird that I just consider to be. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Everything happens, everything falls into place at the right time for the right reason, and people move into your life and people leave your life at the right time for the right reason, and I mean careers are obviously the same thing. The problem is when people they kind of get too reliant on that the role that person or that career plays in your life, and then they get scared when it goes away. And I don't have that fear, because when one thing ends, another thing's bound to happen. I'm excited for whatever that's going to be.
Now, do you only feel like this because of the retreat? Did you feel like this before? Was it an eye-opening experience for those that have never experienced something like that?
I've always kind of had a pretty easygoing outlook on things. I've never let things worry me too much. Otherwise, I would just be a mess with the way my life goes. But that it certainly did change a lot of things. It did allow me to relinquish some control and allow things to happen as they do. My coach, and I'm not going to cuss, but his phrase is, you can either F it or fight it, and it will happen nevertheless. It makes perfect sense. So why try and fight it?
When you were, I guess, experienced the ayahuasca retreat, did you try to fight it at all the very first time that you did it? Did you have any doubts? How nervous were you going into it? Because I've heard about these, and I've heard that it's awful. I heard that you're basically vomiting and shitting the entire time.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience, and this is where it gets confused with drugs. People take drugs to have a good time, and this is work. I mean, this is like studying, and the first ceremony was very difficult because I didn't know what to expect at all. I mean, I was sitting in a wooden hut in the jungle, surrounded by strangers, and I just drank something that tasted absolutely foul, and I was already starting to feel sick. And then you're kind of waiting for that onset, that when the feelings start to happen, and yeah, the anxiety is just immense because you just got no idea what's going to happen. And it's the same every time. I mean, anything could happen. You could have an amazing night. It could absolutely blow your mind and change your life, or you could feel like you're dying, and I've had both experiences, and that you've always got that in the back of your mind when you're going into it, that this could end up really, really rough. This could be really, really miserable, but that's why you have to have respect for it.
You're talking about a wolf. Is it safe to say that that's your spiritual creature?
It's my power animal, yeah, definitely. I've got to get a wolf tattoo now.
Do you feel like everybody should maybe experience this, and do you feel like our culture has lost touch of that kind of feeling about life, and now everything's kind of more materialistic in a way towards people?
Well, this is something that I've changed recently my opinion on. If you'd have asked me when I came back, I would have said yes, everyone should experience it. But I think that some people we've gone so far back as a culture, with respect to these things, that people have gotten so far away from them that it wouldn't even be a good idea for them to experience them now. They have a lot of work to do before they're ready for that. People need to start cleansing their bodies and living healthily and opening their mind and being a little bit more open to the world and less concerned about American Idol and Oprah. You know what I mean? It's like these are the things that are poisoning everybody's mind and killing them. All your pharmaceuticals, throw them out the window. All that kind of stuff. Just people need to find a level of living with health before they can even think about these things, because they are that powerful. And that goes for anything from ayahuasca to psilocybin to mescaline, with the various different cactus that was used by the Native Americans, and these things are, in my opinion, are very, very important in our society and our culture for growth and for dealing with everyday problems and emotional problems and addiction. I mean, a lot of people have been helped with addiction with ayahuasca and things like this. But opinion has shifted, and the media propaganda around it has, it's put everybody in a state of fear. Like, I was reading a report the other day about this guy that, he'd eaten magic mushrooms at his house, and his mum was freaking out, and she called the police, and then obviously he's freaking out because he's having a crazy experience, and people are trying to handcuff him, and his mum's crying, and this is the problem that we have because people aren't educated about them. We need a system and a circumstance where people can be brought to these experiences safely, and know that they're to be respected, and it's not a recreational thing at all.
I appreciate your philosophy. I'm curious, how does Dan Hardy, the father, how do you react when your son or daughter is coming to you and wanting to experience things like this, and has this trip changed the way you might have raised your children in the future?
Definitely. It's just everything's about love and honesty, regardless of how you raise your children. As long as you've got the best interests at heart, and you're honest and open with them, then it can't go wrong. I can't see how it could go wrong. My concern with a lot of people is that they don't educate themselves enough before they start trying to educate their children. And this is a situation that I'm in right now. Like, I mean, I'm almost 31, and I would like to have children at some point in the future. But my concern is that when they start asking me questions, I'm not going to have the answers. And I feel like it's my responsibility to have the answers, which is why I spend most of my days reading and watching documentaries and trying to fill my brain with all the possible questions they could ask. And I think any psychedelic compounds it's a very, very safe thing if it's done right.
I'm curious, this is kind of a little bit off subject, but what goes through your mind when you see something like Here Comes Honey Boo Boo on TV?
It's just poison. It's just poison and toxins for your mind, and just stay away from it all. When I open the news and I'm skipping through and I'm reading, North Korea is going to kill everybody in the world, and Al Qaeda's doing this and that, and then right next to it, Lindsay Lohan's being recognised for contribution to, it was something that her father had said. It was like something about her joining the Forever 21 club, the Forever 27 club. Now, the Forever 27 club is Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, who else? Janis Joplin.
Safe to say already that Lindsay Lohan has no business in that.
Yeah. Remaking Herbie does not put you in that level of that you don't qualify to go into the Forever 27 club just because you're reckless and you drink a lot and drive. You know what I mean? Like, these people had achieved something before they reached 27, which was what made them so special. And it was unfortunate that they died, but like, I read that kind of stuff in the news and think, wow, people are reading this out there and they're digging it. They're like taking this and thinking it's true because it's in the news. Scary. Forever 27. Come on, Lindsay Lohan and Jim Morrison. Let's not get them confused. I was offended by it, and it was a dad that said it. I just want to slap the guy.
Speaking of Jim Morrison, what kind of music are you listening to, and has that changed? Do you listen to music differently now these days?
All kinds of things have changed. Music's been very fluid for me anyway. I always find that I'll listen to something and I'll be completely obsessed with something for a few months, and then I'll start to move on to something else. And Pink Floyd is at the moment just rocking my world. I can't get enough of Pink Floyd, and Tool as well. Listen to a lot of Tool. And I've been listening to a lot of electronic stuff as well. Massive Attack and Future Primitive. Anything that reminds me of that DMT space, basically. And Future Primitive is just like smoking DMT for me, and it's a very powerful music.
Why haven't you maybe sought out any commentating jobs or acting, so far or yet?
Can you see me sitting next to Chael Sonnen and Kenny Florian? Really, I can't see it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not against the idea of any of those things, but it's got to be right. I mean, I've turned down a couple of things, movie roles, because I don't want to be that token MMA fighter standing in the background. So, And all these movies, they've always got a guy standing around with a red mohawk somewhere. I hate it. It's awful. I can't believe I associate myself with that. So I don't know, if the timing's right and the direction's right, then I'm open to it. But I'm not forcing anything. I'm allowing things to happen.
And since you're temporarily on this, maybe this fighter hold, what do you think about Matt Riddle not being able to call you out anymore?
You know,
or is that still going on?
Matt Riddle's an interesting circumstance. I have a couple of thoughts on Matt Riddle which I would like to share with you, because I have nothing wrong. I have no problem with the guy at all. I mean, he's a nice enough dude, and I chat to him in the gym. He seems like a decent guy, and he's just a bit of a kid in his head. He's just a child. And the problem is that, when we start talking about, I saw Mark Ratner approach the Nevada State Athletic Commission about the classification of marijuana on the performance enhancing drugs list, which still blows my mind. And I'm fully in support of it. There are a lot of fighters that would benefit from, certainly a different, a fresher approach, a more modern approach to marijuana. Because I, for one, know I don't want to be taking all kinds of painkillers and sleep medication and stuff. And I know there are a lot of fighters out there that we're so in tune with our body that we don't want to be putting any of that junk in either. And marijuana is a much safer option. But then the guys that test positive for marijuana are people like Matt Riddle. And then they start going, well, I smoke this so I don't beat my kids. And, and then all the fighters that don't test positive, that do smoke marijuana, that aren't idiots in the media, none of us get any attention, not us. There's my my admittance right there. But you know what I mean, though. Like the problem is that then people have only got Matt Riddle to compare it to. It's like, oh well, and I think Nick is fantastic. Nick Diaz is fascinating, but he doesn't articulate it as well as he could, and as well as perhaps someone who has strong opinions on the use of natural medicines could do with having. So I'm fully in support of that, and Matt Riddle he's the problem, and not for me, but just for the opinion of marijuana and in athletes' use.
You spoke a little bit about George St-Pierre, and I was curious what you thought of all the shadiness that was going down. I don't know if you saw the behind-the-scenes video that was captured and leaked on the internet of the UFC exec Mike Merge coming behind the scenes and telling Nick about an hour before the weigh-in that they were going to allow the decimals were going to be allowed. So if he weighed in at 179 pounds or 170.9 pounds, it was still 170. And I don't know, have you heard of anything or have heard of what's going on? And was there anything shady when you fought George? I know you guys have trained together after, but did you experience anything like that? Favoritism, hometown, favoritism or anything like that?
Not really, not outright. The UFC have always been very fair. My only thought on it is that, it's obviously he's the champion, so obviously he gets all kind of special treatments because of that. But at the same time, he is the champion, so he's kind of earned it. And the guy stepping in there to try and take his belt is the enemy, regardless of whether the champion's the most popular guy in there or not. You're always the enemy going in there because you're trying to take the belt off somebody else. The thing, I think George is a very deserving champion. I have a lot of respect for him, and I've trained with him, and I like the guy. But there is a definite what's the best way of putting it? It's out of balance, because if you've got somebody that's making $25,000 to fight for the title, and the champion's spending $125,000 on his training camp, that's not a fair fight to start with. You know what I mean? So I think going into a title fight, you've always got to expect to be up against it, and and it's just like fighting, in another organisation against their champion, or in another country in a guy's hometown on his hometown show, and you're always going to get that. You're not going to get that preferential treatment, and that's just kind of part of combat, I think. Sometimes you got to fight with a stab wound in your side, back in the day, and now we just have different stuff to deal with, and that is greasing and steroids and missing weight, and they're just odd challenges that sometimes we have to deal with in this sport. And for me, you just kind of ignore them and carry on. You just get through it.
Could you understand Nick's frustrations by saying that George is pampered up and buttered up by the UFC?
Yeah, because he's the champion. He's the cash cow. He's the one that they've got to make him look good on the posters because he's going to sell tickets.
Do you feel like they have to make Nick look bad in order to sell tickets, and do you feel like they did that, or did Nick do that?
Selling Wolff tickets, selling Wolff tickets, which I've heard a lot about this week. Now I have a Wolff heart. Apparently, I am qualified to sell Wolff tickets as well. I like Nick because he says it how it is, and there aren't many people, even me, even when you're sitting up there at the press conference, none of us say it how it is. We always sugarcoat it for the fans of the media, and Nick doesn't, and that's why I like him, and I think that's why a lot of other fans like him, because he just says it how it is, and it is how it is. They butter him up and they take nice photographs, and then they make the guy he's fighting look like the bad guy, and it's the business, it's the business, it's not the martial arts, and Nick's the martial artist, and that's why he gets frustrated with it.
My last question, Dan, in an alternate universe, is there a Wolff with a Dan Hardy heart?
If there is, then he's very fortunate. I don't know, because I have two heartbeats, so I'm actually thinking that there might be a Wolff in another dimension that doesn't have a heart at all, and I'm just being greedy because I have two. See, I'm very much of the opinion that the reason California won't let me fight is because it's an unfair advantage. I mean, how could it be bad having two heartbeats? You've got to kill me twice. This is an evolutionary advantage that I've been given, and they're trying to take away from me to make it fair.
Sounds like a potential lawsuit.
Exactly. I think the doctors are jealous because I have two heartbeats and they only have one, so they're like, we've got to get in there and burn this one out so he's the same as us. They're trying to stifle my potential. It's too late. It's not going to happen.